And we are back. First episode of the year.
Episode 314, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's the Horror Guys, in case you're not aware of that.
It is.
And I'm Kevin.
And I'm Brian.
And we're going to talk about some horror movies.
We're going to wrap up our Christmas season with 3 more holiday films, and then we're back to normal.
Actually, 2 of these are New Year films.
Well, holiday films. Okay, You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Not everything is Christmas.
1 last Christmas one, 2 New Year's, and then back to normal.
Yeah. Well, what do we got?
Oh, we got Christmas Bloody Christmas from 2022. And then, of course, ringing in the new year with Ghostkeeper from 1981 and New Year's Evil from 1980.
Every year, I see this New Year's Evil pop up, and I thought we did it way back when.
I had never seen it before.
I'd never seen it before. I thought we had done it. But
Evil.
no, it's just a super common recommendation.
Call me Evil.
Yes.
That's what the killer does when he calls in one time. And then we got the spanking brand newish Heretic and Street Trash. Another glorious South African movie.
I think both of those came out in December.
Uh-huh.
And
a bunch of shorts.
to top that off, yes, 5 more shorts. Hey.
What?
Horror Monthly is now on sale. The newest issue number 40. It came out yesterday.
Neato.
It's all the Christmas it's all the stuff we're going to talk about. Well, not all of it, but all the holiday movies.
Okay.
30, actually, it's something. If you include the shorts, it's like 49 films, 49 stories.
Is there a short story in there too?
There's not this time. There are just too many movies.
Okay.
And you didn't give me a story to publish.
They're right there on the share drive.
Oh, I know. You got to give me permission.
You can't blame it on me.
Well, I'm not. I'm going to blame it to you because it's almost 200 pages without the story.
Oh, my.
There's a lot there.
People getting their money's worth this time.
Yeah, you think magazine, you're thinking like one of those, 20-page things on the mic at the store aisle. No, these are full-length books in most cases.
Book.
It's a lot to these things.
Christmas was a busy month.
Speaking of Christmas, is yours bloody?
Yeah, it was when I watched this.
2022, Christmas, Bloody Christmas. Written and directed by Joe Begos. Stars Riley Dandy, Sam D. Litch, and Jonah Ray. Hour and 26 minutes. Trailer in the show notes.
And we have kind of a mixed review on this one.
No, we don't.
Mixed opinion.
Not really. I don't think we do.
Oh, I think we do.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the first half is loud and bright, with multiple people talking too much, too fast, and a whole lot of cussing. In fact, this is a point of pride of how much they cuss in this movie. They actually give the stat. It's like 5.6 times per minute or something like that. Yeah. And the second half is still loud and bright with a lot of people, loudly cussing and cursing and talking. But at least the horror elements start kicking in. So I think you didn't care much for the whole package, but after I didn't enjoy the first half so much, but I really perked up for the second half. I thought the second half worked for me. I thought it became more science fiction-y, started reminding me a little bit of Terminator and Hardware with a unstoppable robot hunting after this girl. And
I was so turned off after the first half, the second half couldn't have saved it no matter what it did.
Okay, see, that's where we differ in opinion.
Okay.
The second half saved it for me.
Well, we watch a TV commercial about beer for the whole family. Then we see a commercial for a horror porn movie, cream pie ads, and a promo spot about government military robots that have been licensed as Robo-Santas. Credits roll. What was that last part?
Robo-Santas, you say?
Military robots are being used as Santa Clauses.
Huh, what could go wrong?
Yeah.
We're going to find out.
Tori goes to work at the record store. She knows more about the customers than their own spouses do. Robbie, her assistant, asks Tori what she's doing for Christmas Eve. He tries to talk her into going home with him instead of her prearranged date. Even though they're standing in a record store, Robbie shows her an example of the date singing on his iPhone.
Technology wins over vinyl.
Yeah, nobody uses vinyl when you got, Apple
iPhone.
Music.
Yeah.
These two go on, spitting out supposedly witty dialogue for about a half an hour.
It's very fast-paced. They're yakking.
And it's totally useless. It's got nothing to do with a story. It's got nothing to do with a plot. We don't care about these characters. It's just these two jibber-jabbering for an hour and 3 hours in this first half hour.
Too much jibber-jabber.
Yeah,
What's
and
that?
it just goes on and on about nothing.
That judge from Boston Legal?
Yes, yes.
Too much jibber-jabber.
Yeah, the two then drop off some whiskey for Lana, who works at a toy store. It's closed now after hours, and the toy store employees are having their Christmas party. They all make fun of the Robo-Santa they have, but there's news reports of a Robo-Santa recall. They've been starting to revert to their previous military programming.
Foreshadowing.
But nobody watches the news, so that's okay.
Yeah.
At the toy store, the Robo-Santa comes to life and looks around. He stomps around using his Terminator vision to find the owners of the toy store. He finds a fire axe and kills them both.
That's not very Santa-like.
Well, Tori and Robbie drunkenly rant about rock bands getting bad haircuts and losing their talent. Sheriff Monroe comes in, and the conversation blissfully ends, until they go to Tori's house and debate the merits of the Unsolved Mysteries soundtrack and which of the Pet Sematary films is best.
They cover a lot of topics.
Jibber-jabber. Jibber-jabber. Outside, Santa Droid has followed them home and kills the neighbor and his wife, as Tori and Robbie have sex, with their pants on. We're more than 40 minutes in before Tori and Robbie have any idea that anything unusual is going on.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That's the most impressive sex scene ever.
He was bragging earlier about how good he was at oral, and he's so good at it that he doesn't take her underwear off.
Either of them. Yeah, they're both fully dressed and having sex. Supposedly, how drunk are they?
Yeah, I think she gets down to her underwear. I think he takes his shirt off, and they have a sex scene.
So back to the jibber-jabber, please. All right, well, anyway, cutting down to the commentary part. The military retired these robots? What did they replace them with? Yeah. I want to see a movie about those.
Yeah, that's something. Maybe because they couldn't control them. I don't know. They're pretty unstoppable. This one is, anyway.
Yeah. This movie is bleeping awful. According to IMDb, the film features 487 uses of profanity with an average of 5.6 per minute.
They do spew it out.
Merry fucking Christmas, am I right? Yeah, I mean, bad language does not bother me.
No, me neither, but this was excessive.
It's used in replacement of dialogue. It's just constant.
They were deliberately, very deliberate, and it seemed kind of forced.
I don't know that it was deliberate. I think the writer is just horrible.
Well, I think it was
Who
deliberate.
wants to hear about rock bands' bad haircuts when you're paying to watch a movie?
It would have had to have been
about
deliberate.
Killer Santas.
Yeah.
Which rock band had the worst, lost their talent after they got the worst haircut? Dude, we're not high. We don't care. Maybe we should have been high. Also, does every single location in town have either green or purple lighting?
There was a lot of that. Yeah.
There's a lot of that in a lot of modern movies.
Yeah.
We were watching something yesterday. Well,
it's a thing. Well, lots of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of green and purple lighting everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And what did Robo-Santa have against Tori so specifically? There's a whole town full of people to kill, so why was he so obviously stalking her?
I don't know.
She had nothing to do with it.
That was never very clear, but it was definitely fixated on her, especially toward the end there. Dang.
I really shouldn't nitpick, because there's really very little of this film that makes any kind of coherent sense. My main complaint is apparent after the first 5 minutes. There's just too much dialogue. Must have been directed by the scriptwriter. Checking the notes. He wrote all the words, and he made sure the actors read all of them in the most annoying way possible. Or maybe there wasn't even a script, and it was just made up as they went along. A lot of this did feel ad-libbed.
That's possible, yeah.
Either way, it was atrocious and seemingly unlimited. After about a half an hour, Kevin said, "This is exhausting."
It was tiring.
By 25 minutes in, we were both hoping for quick death to the two protagonists.
Okay.
The only thing less fun than listening to two drunks jabbering at each other incessantly for an hour and a half is watching them blathering on and on. And that's just the first half. The second half did eventually become a horror movie with a killer robotic Santa. If you cared by that point, which I did not. All right, I suppose you have some things to add.
Well, I'm not going to harsh on it as much as you did.
I don't know if you could. You don't have it in you.
Yeah, no, I often don't. Sometimes I do. But no, the second half really revived it for me, like I said. It was an insatiable killer robot that just, dang, they threw a lot of stuff at that thing. And I thought the effects were decent at that point, and it started to entertain me in the second half.
I think it went the Terminator route with the unkillable robot getting slammed and hit and blown up and shot.
And there's a science fiction movie, Hardware, with Dylan McDermott, and I can't remember the gal who's the lead in that one. But the robot design a little bit, and again, it's an unkillable military robot that is fixated on her. There were elements that reminded me of that, but it's its own thing.
But in this case, I think they did too much damage to it. It wasn't quite believable. In the Terminator, he was bulletproof and car-proof and all that. But this one here, they just did one thing after another.
That's what made it cool.
And the military retired these things for something better, I assume.
Yeah, that's scary.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, Christmas is finally over. Now it's time for New Year's. 1981's Ghostkeeper, a.k.a. Ghost Space Keeper.
Okay.
So it's one word or two words, depending on how you want to look at it.
They just couldn't make up their mind.
Directed by Jim Makichuk. Written by Jim Makichuk and Doug McLeod. Stars Reva Spear, Murray Ord, and Sherry McFadden. Hour and 29 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. This feels kind of like a made-for-TV movie, but I don't think it was.
No, it's low budget. In fact, it's so low that they ran out of money halfway through production, and they kind of winged it in the second half.
You can kind of tell, too.
Mm-hmm, yeah. I think it would have been interesting to see what the result would have been with sufficient funds. I think it could have been potentially a really good movie. As it is, it's not a great film, but it did keep us watching and interested till the end. It's adequate. Has a lingering 70s vibe, a great setting, a little suspense, and we thought it's worth checking out overall.
About halfway through, I had to look up and see what year that movie Ghost Story came out. Mm-hmm. And it was the year before this.
Okay.
This was clearly kind of modeled on that in a lot of ways.
A bit, yeah.
The filming looks a lot like it.
Mm-hmm. It has that same vibe.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, we're told that there's a legend about the Wendigo in the Native American folklore. And credits roll. Okay, it's a Wendigo movie. We know that.
Yep.
We're going
Spoiler.
Into it. Except,
yeah.
Jenny and Marty enter the Mount View General Store and immediately make fun of the man inside who offers them coffee. Because that's how you can tell tourists, because they make fun of the locals. The storekeeper plays along with a bumpkin stereotype that Marty expects. Soon, Chrissy shows up on her snow machine, and she complains about how boring it is at the lodge. Her date is even more boring. Why would you go to a snow lodge, snow skiing vacation if you don't like skiing in snow?
Yeah, I don't understand that. Yeah, she should have expected what the main activity was. You're going to be either doing the cold activities or stuck indoors.
What were you expecting to do?
Yeah.
Well, the storekeeper warns him that the mountains can be dangerous. There are worse things out there than getting lost.
Harbinger.
The three tourists ignore him and ride up the mountain on the snow machines.
Of course they do.
Do you think they're going to get lost? Do you think something bad's going to happen?
They always ignore the Harbinger in these movies.
They soon decide that it's a good idea to drive across property marked no trespassing. They soon come upon an abandoned lodge, and that's when Chrissy crashes and her machine won't start. The snow has drifted really deep here, and it's tough climbing to get to the lodge, and they force their way inside. It's a swanky place, but from the dust, it's been unoccupied for a long time. Oddly enough, the heat is turned on.
Somewhat. It's still pretty cold, but it's not freezing in there.
The blizzard continues, and they decide they need to stay the night. Each of the three explores the old place. It's New Year's Eve, so no one at the lodge is going to even notice that they're missing because of the partying. Jenny hears someone whispering her name, and we see an eye. Someone is watching them.
Mm-hmm.
Later, she tells the others that she thinks they may not be alone in the building. Then Chrissy tells the others how she seduced her teacher in the 8th grade for $40.
Classy.
Where'd that come from? Marty goes off to see if there's a wine cellar. The place has been abandoned for decades, but they might have wine in the wine cellar.
They might have left it behind, yeah.
Well, he screams when he finds an old woman in the kitchen. You can't stay here. You gotta go. Now. The three really have no choice but to stay with the weird old woman, who says her son also lives with her. And at this point, we've pretty much got the plot figured out, we think.
We think. Well, where's the ghost?
Jenny is clearly jealous of Chrissy, and Marty is a bit of a jerk about it. She blames him for sleeping around, and he gaslights her. You're scared of flipping out, just like your old lady. Oh, one of these people has mental illness, because maybe this is all going to be imaginary.
Maybe.
We see the old woman listening to the argument outside. All right, we'll stop there because the violence is just about to begin.
Mm-hmm. Good times.
Of course, there's only 3 characters.
So there's a limited body count.
Yeah.
Because there's only 3 of them.
Well, it's a New Year's movie, not Christmas. This time I'm wondering where the old woman got her food and supplies.
Yeah, she wouldn't have, if
What
everything
did
was
they
cleaned
eat
out.
if they've been hiding and the mother and the son have been living there for years?
the kitchen really did look bare.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, we know from the opening that there's going to be a Wendigo in this. The setting immediately reminded me of 2006's Cold Prey, where they break into an abandoned lodge in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Or even kind of The Shining from 1980 with the cold, snow, everything.
And trapped in a lodge.
But the main plot is completely different from those. As you said, the director ran out of money halfway through the film and mostly just ad-libbed the second half. The monster only appears in flashes, and he's really not very good. At one time, you thought the monster was the son.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. They're just 2 guys that kind of look alike.
Yeah. And, yeah.
There's no on-screen violence at all, which is why I thought maybe it was made for TV. And there's only a few characters, so the body count is low. It's a slow burn. The acting is mediocre at best, and it's a plot we've seen before. Still, it's got a good bit of suspense. The setting is interesting. We were never quite sure how it was going to end until it did. Which I suspect the same could be said about the director.
Yeah.
How are we going to wrap this up?
Yeah, with no money.
Overall, it's not a good movie, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was kind of entertaining.
I was interested and not bored,
Yeah.
which is a criteria that I look for. Yeah.
All right, another so bad it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that phrase?
I would.
1980s, New Year's Evil.
A glorious example of 1980s slasher movies.
Oh, it certainly is. Remember,
Yes.
in the 1980s, Friday the 13th had just come out like a month before this.
Halloween hadn't come out very long before this.
Halloween was 2 or 3 years before.
The slasher genre was a little bit new.
There was no Chucky. There was no
catching on.
Pinhead.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that Freddy was even out at this point. So slashers were kind of a new thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Directed by Emmett Olson, written by Leonard Neubauer and Emmett Olson, stars Roz Kelly, Kip Niven, and Chris Wallace. Hour and 25 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. Well, spoiler free. It was by today's point of view, we'd say it was a fairly standard formula slasher movie at its core. The 1980 music and fashion was kind of fun. If you lived in the 80s, you will feel right at home here.
Yeah.
It's easy to figure out who the killer really is because we see him at work. I mean, this is not a mass killer that we wonder, who is that guy? We see this guy from the first scene.
Yeah, a lot of these back in the day were, who's doing it, where they would just show the killer's hand stabbing or just his feet or something. Here, the guy's just right there. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
That's him, huh?
Now, there is a little bit of a mystery figuring exactly who he is.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not hard to figure out either.
It's really not.
In relation to the other characters. Yeah.
Yeah, but by seeing the killer as at work, we see that it's kind of a little entertaining when we see things don't go smoothly for him. It's hard being a killer in the city.
It is, yeah. People keep interfering and getting in the way. And yeah.
Just like the previous one, nobody's going to say that this is a great movie, but it was entertaining.
Yeah.
I think maybe I like this one better than the Ghostkeeper, although they're
me too.
both decent enough.
Oh, I like this way better.
What happened?
Well, Ernie and Diane argue about her being late for her show. She's doing a New Year's Eve show. She's like a hostess, this weird call-in dance music show thing. Well, she calls Yvonne, who says Richard is out of town and drinking heavily. Yvonne gets a dangerous stranger in her hotel room, and we see that her role is a very brief one. And credits roll. First victim. It's New Year's Eve, and we cut to a bunch of rowdy punk teenagers causing trouble in their convertible. They soon arrive at the same high-rise hotel that Yvonne and Diane are in. Diane's son, Derek, also arrives, but Diane doesn't have much time for him. She doesn't even hear a word he says. She'll talk to him later, and he's kind of put out by that.
He's also probably about 30, and he's supposed to be a teenager, I believe. Which, normally this
Yeah.
bothers you more than it does me, but he just didn't look the part.
He didn't look young enough.
Why is he so pouty and whiny? He's old enough to retire almost.
Well, I think he's kind of mentally ill, too.
Okay,
So,
that much is true.
Yeah. Well, it turns out Diane, also known as Blaze, we fully find out what the thing she's hosting is a new wave rock countdown for the holiday. And the show is called New Year's Evil. And it's now 58 minutes until the ball drops. Well, they have operators taking calls for the best song this year and other commentary and questions. She takes a call from a guy who's using a voice altering machine, and he wants to be called Evil. He says he's going to commit a murder at midnight. I'm going to kill someone you know, someone close to you. Well, this is all live and on the air. Diane tells Ernie to bring in more cops for security. It wasn't a garden variety loony on the phone. She's really freaked out. Well, meanwhile, at the Crawford Sanitarium, someone sneaks in the back door as the patients all jump around like lunatics to the music on the TV. Yep. Well, the man puts on an orderly uniform and tells a real nurse that he's there to fill in. He's even brought champagne, and she's charmed enough to hook up with him. And we noticed in the background here that the clock says 8:45, even though that's counting down to midnight.
5,
Whoops.
4.
It was
wait,
either-
it's 8:45.
It was either a broken clock or they just overlooked that detail in the background. Yeah.
Actually, on second thought, now that I'm thinking about it,
Uh-huh.
he's not actually traveling across. He's going to kill somebody at midnight in the 4 different time zones.
Yeah, but this was their midnight time zone where the dance show is. 'Cause
Was
he-
it though, or was
yeah,
that like the
uh-huh.
New York? When New York comes first, and they're in L.A., so New York comes first, and then Central and Mountain, and then I think maybe it was almost just oh my God, that would have been 9 o'clock, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
No matter how you
8:45?
figure it, I don't think the math really works out.
I don't think it did, yeah. Well, Lieutenant Clayton and a cop show up at the show, and he says Diane should expect that sort of thing, considering the type of people that her show attracts.
Yeah, back in the 80s, the new wave, or maybe even punk, it was, oh my gosh, that's so extreme, that's so terrible. Boy, that sounded so mild and mediocre by
It's so
today's
tame.
standards.
Yeah, it looked so tame.
The
Yeah.
type of people her show attracts, the scum of the earth.
Well, as the clock hits midnight on the East Coast, the fake orderly stabs the nurse to death. He then calls Diane back and tells her he made his first kill for the Eastern Standard Time.
Oh,
Okay,
it's
so
not just one killer.
So I don't think that's a mistake then.
No, he probably
45.
killed her at 9 o'clock
He killed her
California
at 9
time.
o'clock
All
their
right.
time.
That makes sense then. Yes, it
Oh,
does.
suddenly it's clear.
It was 9 o'clock then. Then he's going to kill somebody at 10 and 11, and then real midnight for
Midnight,
them.
yeah. Well, he plays her an audio recording of the murder and then promises to call her in 1 hour for the next time zone.
Yeah. I think at the time we thought he was traveling
No.
between time zones.
Yeah, no, but he's not, yeah.
Okay, so he's going to kill people once every hour until midnight, and then he's going to kill somebody close to Blaze and drama.
And meanwhile, Derek takes some pills and shows us that he's not quite normal.
He's not quite normal.
He's a weird young man.
Well, it's a pretty standard slasher. No flashers.
No flashing.
But this time we see the killer's face very early on. Who he actually isn't revealed until kind of toward the end. It's really not that hard to guess, though. I was never into this kind of music back in the 80s, but nowadays it sounds so tame. I assume that the bands were real musicians, but I've never heard of them. One of them is called Shadow, and the other is called Made in Japan.
Yeah, and even
And there really
looking
were
them
only
up.
2 bands.
Yeah, couldn't find. There is a Made in Japan band, but it's not them. It's a newer band, more recent. I found a band called that. Shadow.
Well,
I
this is
couldn't
40
find.
years ago. They probably still would not be going.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the killer has one difficulty after another to get his job done, since no one seems to want to cooperate with him. Does the third murder ever actually happen?
Yeah, it does.
He chases that girl around the drive-in movie theater, and she crawls under something, and the cops show up, and he runs away. Did he ever actually kill anybody at that point? I think he missed that one.
He missed that one, but he got a different one.
Okay.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people die in this, yeah. It's more than just the 3.
He's got a pretty good body count, yeah.
Hey, it's 2025, and it's time for some movies. that aren't holiday stuff.
Okay.
Yay!
Yay.
Christmas is over.
Hey.
All right. First up, we have Heretic from 2024. Written by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, directed by them also. Stars Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. Hour and 51 minutes.
And it is mainly
Kind of a long one.
mainly just the three of them. There are some other
Some non-speaking characters.
small
There are
roles.
some small roles.
Yeah, small roles, but yeah, it's really about the three of them.
Spoiler free. We thought this was truly excellent, with an amazing performance from Hugh Grant.
Yeah, usually he plays a slightly doofy, likable guy at the core. He's not.
Lots of romantic comedies.
He's not that in this. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Both the young women were good as well, with all three of them playing well off each other. It's kind of surprisingly talky, but there's plenty of tension and weirdness to keep it interesting. We'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, very, very good.
This, normally I talk about, jibber jabber as early it'd be a terrible thing in that earlier movie.
But done right,
This is
it works.
done right. It's almost all talking. There's not a lot of violence in this, but it's really entertaining.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a stage play.
Do it right, and jibber jabber works.
Yeah. Good dialogue.
Yeah.
Well, what happened? What's it about?
Well, two girls are sitting on a bench, and they're discussing porn movies and how to prove the existence of God.
No, how porn movies prove the existence
how
of God.
how porn movies, right?
You're going to have to watch to figure that one out.
Yeah.
It's some logic.
Yeah. Well, they're on some kind of religious mission to convert as many people as possible to Mormonism. Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton walk through town trying to proselytize to everyone they pass, and it's not very successful.
It wasn't clear to me that they were talking Mormons until about halfway through the movie. Mm-hmm. They just seemed like generic religious proselytizers.
I guessed right away it was Mormonism, but
Well, yeah, it's a good guess, but yeah.
and it definitely is.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they both finally make their way to their destination, a big house behind a metal fence, in the rain. They chain up their bikes outside.
It's nice and sunny when they're in town walking through, handing pamphlets to people. By the time they get to the house, it started to rain a little bit.
It's raining
And
heavily.
as they get to the door,
Yeah.
they're soaked.
Yeah. Well, the man inside, Mr. Reed, finally opens the door and welcomes them inside. He had contacted the church, asking for missionaries to stop by. They can only come in if there's another woman present. Well, he mentions that his wife is in the kitchen.
Now, I don't know Mormon rules,
Come
but
on
there's
in for
two
pie.
of them, so I don't know why that would be necessary. I can see why one wouldn't go in alone, but there's two.
Yeah, they're insistent, but he said, "Oh yeah, she's making pie. Come on in." And, okay.
A little trivia thrown in here. Both of the girls were raised as Mormons.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure it's probably technically accurate. They'd have said something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet it is. Well, they both sit, all three of them, they sit down to talk about God's plan for Mr. Reed, but he would rather talk about them. Paxton is super gung-ho and eager to talk about religion, and Barnes seems a little bit less enthusiastic. He talks to them about polygamy and how the church stopped doing that. Both girls get very quiet as they explain how their beliefs have changed over the years.
This looks like a sore spot for them.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Reed has his own theories about Joseph Smith's revelation, and he has a well-read copy of the Book of Mormon. He's got,
He knows all the words.
He knows all the words. Yeah, he's gone through it a lot. He gives a long speech about his beliefs and research, but the girls, well, they still want to meet his still unseen wife. He keeps stalling about that. He goes into the back of the house to get some pie and get some refreshments. Well, the girls decide that Reed is creepy, and they should probably just wrap this up. They decide the wife is not coming out to meet them. They finally figure this out. So they decide to sneak out the front door. But their coats are somewhere in the back room, with the key to their bike lock in the pocket. And the door is locked anyway. Whoops. Yeah. Well, they look outside, and now it's winter and a blizzard. The weather changes abruptly in this movie.
It was raining, and not only is it a blizzard, everything is frozen, and snow doesn't build up that quickly.
It's a winter wonderland out there.
Yeah, and I was starting to wonder, is there some magic going on? Have they transported to an alternate dimension or something? And no, I think it's just weird weather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the power goes out, or at least some of it. Some of the lights go out. They finally decide to go into the back, and the room where Reed is in looks like a church. They do grab their coats, but they still can't get the door open. So they ask for help with the front door, But he said the deadbolts are on a timer and it won't open, so they'll have to exit out through the back of the house. Mighty inconvenient. Yeah. And Reed says, they can leave at any time, but he knows they're lying about their reason for leaving. He said that they said that they got a call that they're expected back at home base. He says cell phones don't work here because of all the metal in the frame of the house.
What?
Well, this is all dragging out for too long, and it's clear that something sketchy is going on. The girls are getting antsy about this. He finally asks if they really believe he has a wife in the house. It's a matter of belief. This, of course, leads to another speech about irrational beliefs. And the doors in the back, like the room there, both lead to a deep, dark basement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So they're prisoners and stuff's going on.
Mm-hmm. It seems that way, yeah.
I still want to...
And the lights are weird, too, because he's got those on a timer switch where some of them go off. Like, did you catch that?
That was on a timer?
Yeah. At one point, he resets the timer lights.
Okay.
For some reason.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just a weirdo, and he's got this house rigged up with all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still want to know how it went from a rainstorm to a blizzard in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Well, Hugh Grant here is amazing as creepy Mr. Reed. He said he got tired of playing the same old roles over and over, and this is very different from his usual stuff. Yeah, he's usually like the romantic leading man, and he's got the whole charming thing going on here,
he
too,
does.
but
He
in a
still
bad
has
way.
that charm, but he's using it, yeah.
It's still a very talky film, almost entirely made up of Reed's speeches and philosophical ideas. And like I said earlier, it could have almost been a stage play. It takes place in a couple of rooms and only 3 people.
Most of it does, yeah.
Not much action, but it's extremely tense. Grant is ultra creepy, probably because a lot of what he says is true, and it's really well filmed. I like this enough that it's going to be in my top 10 for 2024 this year.
Okay, I wouldn't quite...
Hey, that brings me to a point.
I'm not going to quite put it in my top 10, but it's close.
All right.
Yeah.
We've got our top 10 for 2024 coming up in just a few days. Be sure to be subscribed to the podcast, and you'll hear all about it. And, of course, if you're on the newsletter, horrorweekly.com, you'll get more information about that as well. But we both took our 10 favorite... Kevin took his 10 favorite films of the year. I took my favorite 10 of the year. And it turned out he liked 6, I liked 6, and we agreed on 4 of them.
And that's,
so
the
2024
movies. And then we're going to mention a few older movies that we saw that are also our favorites of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of good movies there.
There's a lot of... It was hard to narrow it down to just 10.
Kevin's got some that I think are a little questionable, but I've got some that he thinks the same about. So we will argue those to death in a few days.
We will persuade you.
All right, anything else to add about Heretic?
All 3 of the young ladies too, not just Hugh Grant. The 3 of them were just really good together.
Yeah, this is very... It's overall everything's good about this movie.
Yeah, top notch.
I suppose if you're looking for a monster or a lot of action, you will be bored to death with this. But if you like the more cerebral type of horror, I would say this is probably a really good one.
And is there some magic or not?
There could
Could
maybe.
But
I think it's left a little vague.
Yeah, it's left vague. Yeah, you got to believe whether there is or not. It's a movie about belief for sure. Yeah.
Well, one thing I believe is we had a lot of fun with Street Trash 2024. This is a remake. I've not seen the original.
I had not either. This is brought to you by the same guy that brought you Fried Berry,
which we also loved.
Yeah.
Directed by Ryan Kruger, written by him and James G. Williamson and Roy Frumps. Stars Sean Cameron Michael, Donna Cormack Thompson, and Joe Vaz. Hour and 25 minutes. And it says coming 2024. I believe this is on Shudder right now.
I think that's where we watched it, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's a reboot of a 1987 film by the same name. Truly a classic of cinema. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay, I have not either.
I have not seen the original.
We should have, though.
But this is truly a classic of cinema.
It's entertaining and fun, for sure. The body horror gore is over the top. The humor and the action is well done. It's weird throughout, with a hyper-reality science fiction vibe. It was a hoot.
Yes, it was.
I'm going to say if you liked RoboCop, with ignoring the whole RoboCop bit,
it does
the
kind of have that
aesthetic
same
of the city
vibe
and
to
the crime and everything, I think it had a lot of the same aesthetic to it, yeah.
Yeah, somewhat, yeah.
Especially that toxic waste scene.
Yeah.
All right, what happens?
Well, the loudspeaker calls for volunteer number 85, and a man comes in to be handcuffed to a chair.
At least they're volunteering.
He's not exactly a volunteer, yeah. He's injected with something pink and glowy as the scientist watches for a reaction.
He gets one.
He gets one, yeah. There's a great deal of screaming before the patient passes out, and then his head starts pulsing, and his intestines pour out onto the floor, and it only gets worse from there. The scientist is pleased, and credits roll.
It's a success.
Yay! We get an ad for how wonderful it is to visit Cape Town, South Africa, interspaced with reports of rioting, monopolies, homelessness, power cuts, and all kinds of bad things.
I know I didn't want to visit there after this.
Well, this is an alternate. I mean, I don't.
It's a near future.
Cape Town is not that bad, as bad as they portray it here.
Well, between this one and the Fried Berry movie, I think the director thinks it's that bad.
He's focusing on the worst things. Yeah. Well, there's also the Rat King, who leads the revolutionaries. We see that it's basically an apocalyptic wasteland now. Well, it's a mess.
There's a good part of town and
there's
everything
a bad,
else.
Yeah, it's clearly haves and have-nots, and it's very distinct. The elites live very well, and the poor live very bad. Well, one man leads the police on a chase through town. This goes really bad for the cop, who loses his penis in the process.
At one point, he shoots him in the face with a bag full of Viagra, and then when things get bigger, he gets it stuck in a metal closing gate, and it gets cut off. Ow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of gives you an example of where this movie's going.
Uh-huh.
Sets the tone.
Yeah. Ronald and Chef watch Alex beat up some muggers. Ronald gives a new battery to pay off Rat King's henchmen. They take her home to where two more crackhead friends, Pap and Wars, are hiding in camouflage, along with Offley. Two-Bit is also there. He's the guy that played Fried Berry. And he's clearly crazy with an imaginary friend who's an alien that only he can see.
Little rubber blue man who hangs around his ankles and talks.
Yeah, and he's obnoxious and profane. And
nobody else sees him.
Nobody else sees him or hears him. Yeah. The speakers announce the citywide curfew is now active, so the whole group goes to sleep. The next day, Ronald and Chef give Alex lessons on being homeless. She doesn't need lessons. She's already pretty good at it. Well, they watch Mayor Mostert. He's campaigning for re-election. He talks about the drones roaming around the city to round up all the nasty particles. Yeah, particles.
He means homeless.
He means homeless, yeah. Mayor Mostert goes to his scientists' test subjects, and they watch the woman breathe in gas and then mutate horrifically. She dissolves into a puddle of multicolored goo, and the mayor is pleased. A solution to homelessness.
Woot!
Yeah. Well, we hear a story about how Ronald goes to Sex Addicts Anonymous and seduces people for money. We also hear about how Wars and Pap created an all-new drug. Two-Bit shows Alex his tattoos. Outside, one of the drones gasses a homeless guy who melts like the others. It's quite a display. Well, the Rat King's goons are coming for Alex, and when Two-Bit gets annoyed, he runs them off. Later, Ronald and Alex trade sad stories. So we should stop there, shouldn't we?
Probably should, yeah.
Yeah.
Bad things happen.
Yeah.
All right, well, where do our human bodies store up all that yellow and blue paint?
There's a lot of it.
If you like the toxic waste scene in the original RoboCop film and thought they should make a whole movie about that, then this is for you. It's a very juicy movie. The gore and body horror effects are really over the top and a lot of fun. As we said earlier, it's brought to you by the same writer and director that did the amazing Fried Berry from 2020. It's also based on the 1987 film of the same name. So yeah, a lot of homeless people get melted in this. They get turned into colored paint.
Mm-hmm. But the bad guys get theirs, too.
And it's got some crazy over-the-top violence and fighting, and yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Don't take it too serious. No Heretic.
And Gary Green, he's the Fried Berry guy. He tops the crazy.
He's not the star of the movie, but he's one of the more noteworthy characters.
Yeah, his little sidekick. And it's funny, too, because he has moments of lucidity, too, where he'll spout off something that just sounds completely sane and rational. And yeah, yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. What's your favorite of the week?
Oh,
I'm going to have to go with Heretic.
I think I'd probably have to go with Heretic, followed by Straight Trash.
Yeah.
For favoritism.
Yeah, the holiday movies,
Yeah.
none of them were great.
No, they were okay.
This time.
Yeah.
A lot of good ones earlier in the month, but not this week.
Yeah, Heretic was the winner of the week, I would say.
All right, time for some short films. We're going to start out with, they're all 2024s. We got The Eyeless Man, written and directed by Scott McMillan. Stars Susan Sims and Paul Lapsley. Under 5 minutes, and you can watch this whole thing on YouTube.
Okay.
What's this one about?
Well, Kirsten is home alone, standing out at her window smoking. She sees a strange bald man with no eyes outside. She reaches for her phone to take a picture.
And I'm like, don't turn away from him. You know what's going to happen. He's going to be gone.
Well, and sure enough, he's gone.
Yep.
When she turns back. Well, then she starts getting calls from an unknown caller, and she regrets answering.
Yeah, don't answer those calls.
Yeah. It's only got 2 actors on a simple set, so it probably didn't cost much to make, but it's effective. Full story with suspense. You can always tell what's going on all the time, so we never find out why, but things do happen to her. Yeah.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, I thought it was a good one.
All right.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got The Vampire Theory. Written and directed by Dominic Gross. Stars Corinne Strickett and Tom Harden. 11 and a half minutes. This was your favorite, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
A woman hears something moving around upstairs and then kills her cat to feed it. Well, it turns out it's Oscar, her son, who's locked upstairs. Lori calls in a doctor, tells him that her son has vampirism, but it's taken a long time for the effects to fully manifest. She's been helping Oscar as much as she can, but she needs the doctor to assist.
Yeah,
What do you think a doctor is going to say to that?
She even had to help him to, by filing his teeth down to make sure they're pointed, and and you're thinking, oh, is she?
She's out of her mind.
Yeah, is it one of those? Is he or isn't he? Is she out of her mind? Well, it's really well done. Seems like she might be unhinged and imagining her son's condition, but we aren't really sure.
It could be real.
But on the bright side, we see that the cat is actually okay.
It wasn't the cat that she killed.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, that's cool. Your favorite.
Yeah.
Next up is my favorite, Residual. Written and directed by Asa Brader. Stars Bill Hand, Jimmy Merchel, Tristan Johnson, Kyle Hardy, and Damian Cura. Little over 10 minutes, and it is also on YouTube. Sam and Joey are hired to clear out houses after tenants had been evicted. Joey, who is new, asks old-timer Sam about did he have any crazy stories from his years on the job.
As a matter of fact, he does.
He doesn't. He says no. He just does the job. He looks at the list and he clears out and he doesn't think about it too hard.
He's repressed on this one.
Joey then drives him to the next house on their list, and Sam gets really uncomfortable and refuses to go inside when he sees that house. As Joey goes in alone, Sam has a flashback to his first day on the job.
Sometimes it's better not to know all the details of your job.
Why?
Yeah.
Why are these people evicted?
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's clearly shot and well acted, and the chemistry between the two main actors is very realistic. The flashback, we know it's a flashback because it's in black and white, it explains everything we need to know. Yeah, and I thought this was just really done. I like the two guys. They got along well together. It's well shot. Just my favorite.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
All right, one we both kind of liked, but in a different way, is Pig.
Mm-hmm.
Directed by Evan Powers, written by him and Bruce McGuire, stars Aaron LaPlante, Jordan Wilson, C.J. Vena, and Graham Outerbridge. A little under 8 minutes, and all of these are on YouTube as always. What happens?
Well, a group of friends are playing strip poker, and the guys are losing badly. They casually mention that there's no cell service, as someone bangs on the door.
We know this is going on already, don't we?
Yeah. Kevin leaves to go check the door and comes back with a knife in his chest. And they've left a note on him, too. We play games, too, the note says. Well, the group's troubles are just beginning.
Yeah, but they're not the only group.
No, there's a group of killers.
This is a touching tale of friendship and support.
Mm-hmm. It's very touching, yeah.
It starts like a typical campground slasher story, but it takes a turn. wonder if the strangers went through all this before they attacked helpless families. And of course, always remember that, yes, slashers have feelings too.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, be careful what mask you assign to people, because feelings matter. I think that was a second one, I think.
All right. And next up, we got a very weird one, Little Lilith. Written and directed by Jameson Forkenbrook, stars Andy McPhee and Ajovi Cohn, and it's a little over 7 minutes.
This one has a heavy science fiction bent to it.
Kinda.
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, two people discuss a retirement contract. They're just sitting across the table from each other, and he won't sign unless they explain how they are going to deal with his project concerning Lilith, who is not human.
He's getting ready to retire, but he's designed this computer thing that is gotten a little out of hand, it sounds like.
And there's something called Little Lilith, too, so that's a problem. It has evolved superhuman intelligence, and she's been affecting the outside world, which he doesn't like. She's a conscious machine. So...
Yeah, okay. I got to say, I really don't have any idea what this was all about. But it was very
strange.
tense. Yeah,
it was strangely done, but I liked it. Yeah.
It sounds like a world that might not be so much fun to live in, even less so when you find out who's running it. Yeah, it's very weird. Didn't understand it exactly, but it was very, very well done and cool.
But you find out who the boss is.
Yes, sure do. Yes. Yeah. Hey, we're out of movies.
Oh no, we'll have to watch more.
10, yes.
Yeah.
Next week we will have 5 more movies, 5 more shorts, I think.
Okay.
Actually, we got an indie film coming out, so it might only be 4 shorts.
Okay.
We tend to skimp sometimes with those. And as we said before, in a few days, stay tuned. We will have our top 10 of 2024 podcast and newsletter coming out.
Nice.
If, of course, you are really into the holiday horror films, you can pick up issue 40 of Horror Monthly at horrormonthly.com. And it's got all the movies, all the, what were they, Christmas and
Christmas.
New Year's.
A little bit of New Year's, mostly Christmas.
Advent calendar, stuff like that. Yeah, mostly Christmas.
Mostly Christmas.
We watch a different holiday movie every day in December, and they are all in issue number 40. Next month, issue 41, we get back to our somewhat random movies.
Regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah. All right, well, that's it for this week. I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.